Hey YouTube, this is going to be the disassembly of the Gravity TXT T379. My son dropped his phone into the water. Everything died on it, but the screen was still good. So I found one on eBay that the screen was broken and everything else was good, so I'm going to swap them out. You're going to need a small flathead screwdriver and a very small Phillips screwdriver. This was from a eyeglasses repair kit. It's perfect. Tiny little tip on there for everything you need. Taking out the memory card, the SIM card, and the battery. Back cover's off. So we're going to start from here. First thing we're going to do is take out 8 small screws to take off the back cover. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. I'm going to take them out and come back when they're out to save time. The screws are out. What I like to do is every level that I take off, or every piece I take off, I put those screws in a certain pile. I work left to right. That way when I reassemble it, I know not to miss any steps, not to miss any screws that go with certain things. The only other thing you need besides these tools is a fingernail. It works the best. That way it doesn't damage the plastic case. Stick your finger in between the color part and the keyboard, and the plastic will start popping and separate. This one's been taken apart a couple times now, so it might not pop off as easy, but it does. This right here is the headphone jack. You have to lift up the back. Slide it forward. Pops off. This is the main board. This right here you can pop off with your fingernail. That connects the faceplate to the motherboard, the LCD to the motherboard. Once you pop that off, this just comes right off. Take off the keyboard portion, put that aside. Now this will be stuck right here, but since it's been taken off a couple times with me, it popped off on its own. Next, we're going to work on the slider portion. See, it slides like that. Right here is the ribbon from all the front accessories. Connects to here. Before I do that, this plastic slider portion is going to come off with these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws. I'm going to take them off and I'll come back. Okay, those 6 screws are out. Here in my second pile. This just lifts up. Now this is where I should have done this before I took the screws out. Slide it forward so the ribbon gives you a little extra play over here. So that comes up like this from underneath. I would push it real carefully. Comes off. Slide it through that hole. This piece is done. Next, we're going to take off this back faceplate. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4 screws to take off. I'll do that and come back. Screws are out. Next thing is starting this corner right here. This is hard to start, so you will need a screwdriver. You can try it with your fingers just to try first, but I had to do it. There we go. Once that first one goes, fingernail in. Fingernail all the way around. Now lift this up. Tuck that through. Now, you've got speaker, just magnetized. Comes back to here on this board. This one's your LCD. So to take the LCD off, there's this plastic wrap. Just peel that back carefully. Right here is a brown portion. You can use your fingernail, which is safer. Just get the edge up underneath, it pops up. And that comes right out from underneath there. That comes out. LCD is tricky. You don't want to flex it too much, obviously. Break the crystals inside. This one obviously is already damaged, so I'm not very worried about how I take it out. LCD comes out. It's a plastic screen, it's not a touch screen, so there's no worries about that. And that's that. Reassembly is obviously just in the opposite order. Put this back together. I know there's probably an issue with static and frying stuff on your board, but I'm not too worried about that. That goes in. Ribbon gets tucked into there. Slide down that piece. Microphone back. Tape over it. After that, this bottom faceplate goes back on. Just make sure everything is lined up right. Just start working your way around, popping everything back in. Next step's going to be this. It goes back on. See? Remember my screws. That's why I keep them in different orders. I would have forgot that. Those 4 screws have to go back in. I'll be back. Okay, I've got those 4 screws back in. I'm sure everybody who messes around with electronics like this knows that there's always extra screws that the manufacturer puts in for when you reassemble things. But if you can avoid that, that's always the best option. So I got that back in. Next step, my 6 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll be back. My 6 screws back in. This you're gonna tuck down back into here. Keyboard mat is going to go back in, minus the hair. Boards are going to come back in. That just sits in place right now. Get that cable back on. The microphone back in, make sure that's in. Last step, this goes back on. Headphone jack slides in first. And just push everything back together. Take a look on the side. Make sure everything's snapped in right. Final step, put in your last set of screws. No more screws after that. You know you didn't miss anything. I'll be back. All 8 screws back in. Just finger tighten them, not too much. Don't jam them down. You don't want to crack anything. Everything's back together. Everything looks right. Let's perfect. You know the old expression, one man's junk is another man's treasure. Instead of paying $140 to get a new phone, I found one on eBay, 15 bucks. Had all the pieces that I needed. Good to go, 15 bucks, a little bit of knowledge. Good luck.